Aye.
Moheski.
Aye.
Scornia.
Yes.
Sullentrup.
Yes.
Waterman.
Yes.
Having read the minutes, are there any comments or questions?
Make a motion. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sullentrup, seconded by Holtmeyer. That's not right. You got the wrong name there.
Yeah, sure do.
Brinker, seconded by Brinker. There we go. To approve the minutes from the last meeting dated January 22nd, 2018. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approve the minutes. Thank you.
Presentations, Hotel Convention Center Study Presentation.
All right. I'll introduce, this is Jenny, I'm sorry, I don't remember the last name. Jenny Ryan, with PGAV. If you remember, a couple months back, we paired up with the Tourism Commission, and then with the city, we split the cost of a hotel and convention center study. So they're here, Jenny's here tonight to give you just an executive summary of the findings of that, and then I will actually share the full study with you. I got that PDF version as well. So I will be emailing that to the entire council, so thank you.
Okay. Hi.
You guys hear me okay?
Sure.
Talk a little louder.
Can you hear me okay? That's not working. Okay, I'll try and speak louder. I have a low voice, so.
There we go.
I'm Jenny Ryan with PGAV, and we did a hotel and conference center feasibility study for the city of Washington. What you guys have in front of you is a kind of an executive summary of the report. As Sal said, he'll email you the PDF of this, which is, it gets into the data a lot more heavily than what I'll tell you tonight. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the findings of the report. Probably talk for a few minutes. If you have questions, feel free to ask me. And also, if you need to follow up, once you've read the report, I'll make sure that Sal gives you my contact information, so you can send me any questions.
Do we want to give her, I don't think Sherry's being able to hear, so,
Mary's is working. This one works.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, is that better?
no?
You were Mary's. It's working.
Okay, it's
There we
testing.
go. Yeah,
Much better.
okay.
So that's better, okay. Well, basically, we looked at some data for the hotel market. Washington has its own hotel market, but we had to expand the sample study to some hotels that were in nearby cities, Pacific, Union, a couple other hotels nearby. Basically, the good news is that the demand has been growing for the hotel industry in this region overall. We also looked at the average daily rate of hotel rooms, it's called the ADR, and that's increased basically about $8 from $83 in 2011 to $91 in 2016. That's the average daily rate for the hotel, so that's a good indicator as well. We also looked at statewide data from Missouri, which had a really stronger than average visitor tourism data for 2016. They also showed a strong growth in the average daily rate for the hotel across the state. So these are good indicators for the potential of a new hotel in Washington. We also looked at conference center markets. There is as you know, one conference center, the Expo Center, that was specifically built for conferences and for large group meetings and for people staying out of town. That Expo Center only can accommodate 120 attendees. So if you were looking to attract conferences from across the state, like we have the Missouri State Planning Association, for example, that gets about 300 visitors. So it'd be hard for you guys to host conferences if you had only a space for 120. You do have other event spaces like the Knights of Columbus and Lake Hall that are for larger groups, but that's not, it's not connected to a hotel. So if you're trying to get that hotel and conference center market, that is not going to work as well as having the hotel and conference center adjacent to each other. So, you know, a quick conclusion here, and I'll tell you a little bit of Washington's destination tourism potential too, which my colleague will speak more to the Tourism Commission tomorrow about that. But I thought you guys might be interested in that as well. So we do promote, we do recommend levels to just lower level to about 57%. A healthy occupancy level is 65%. So if you do add the hotel, it will decrease those occupancy levels slightly. But we think, looking at the bed and breakfast type of work attraction that you guys have here, your position as a destination point for people heading to the wineries, your location on the river, there's a lot of things here that can support an additional hotel. You guys have done a lot of work in creating attractive experiences and places to go in downtown over the last several years. So I think if you can appeal Washington to people who are coming for day trips, trying and understand what would they like to have at nighttime if they're not getting to go back home, see if you can get them to stay overnight, then also appeal to your business travelers that you have in town for supporting the different businesses you have here, like the hospital and the industrial park. If you can, promote your place to those business people, they will stay longer, maybe even come back on a weekend with their family, and you'll have, I think, more occupancy to generate more business at a hotel. Overall, I think you've done a really good job as attracting more tourism to Washington. PGAV did a destination assessment of Washington in 2009, and a lot of the recommendations you guys have implemented, like creating more experiences for people in the downtown, capitalizing on your riverfront, having some development on the main street there along the river. So you're creating more of a place here and more experiences for people to come here, and I think that will help increase more visitors to support a hotel at Conference Center. So I know it's kind of rambling. The report's much more organized and laid out into greater detail, all those points, but I thought rather than have you guys slave over reading this, I think just the 5-minute version, hopefully that will help you guys understand it. Happy to take any questions if anyone has any thoughts.
You'd mentioned two comparisons, one from Union and one from Pacific. Would that be the Super 8 and what's the other one in Pacific?
Yeah, the Pacific, it's a Super 8, and there's also
Holiday Express, ain't it?
Best Western.
Best Western.
And so basically, the hotel data that we are able to subscribe to, the national company, it's STR, they track hotel trends. They aren't able to track smaller hotels, like you guys have the Old Dutch, which is a great boutique hotel, but they don't track the data from smaller places like that. They will only track them from larger, more chain type hotels. So, we did reach out to Old Dutch to see if they would share some data. Weren't able to get it by this point in time, but I'm sure they would be forthcoming and helping you guys, tell you where their guests are coming from for that kind of data. So we had to expand it to basically within about, I'd say, a 20-mile ring of Washington. So I think capturing a lot of the traffic that's going along Highway 44, people that are coming from wine country, if you can increase, give them a little more sense of why should they stay in Washington as their base point or place to come back at night after they've toured around the attractions, I think that would really help you guys.
How many rooms hotel are you thinking about?
The data we looked at, it said you could accommodate about a 100-room hotel, which is fairly large. Boutique hotels tend to be about 60 rooms. If you're talking about some, like what we have in downtown St. Louis, for example, there's a Magnolia Hotel, which has about 60 rooms. You could add a much larger hotel than a boutique hotel.
But that still wouldn't accommodate something with like 300 participants probably for the convention.
Yes, and so I think with that, I think you would be hard pressed to add a hotel that's going to be 300 rooms. I don't think you have the market to support that. But you already have 4 or 5 hotels within the city that are fine establishments or seem to be doing pretty healthily business. So I think you could add a hotel but have a larger convention center that would accommodate 300 people. And so you'd have to have those attendees stay in the different hotels, but it's not too far away.
Okay.
So you're saying 100-room maximum, and with the rest of the hotels that we have, the hotel I haven't got your PDF, but your hotel would have a convention center to hold more than 300 people?
We are suggesting, the city asked us to look at this just to see if a convention center or conference center would be feasible
So how does it work? You go out and you find somebody that wants to come build a hotel here?
That was not part of this assignment, but we have done that for other clients. If that's something the city wants to consider, we can definitely do that.
And a goal of this was to have this feasibility study ready. It's almost like the homework that we have available for when a company contacts us and a hotel or a convention center is interested, we can say, look, we've done the homework for you. It is feasible in this area, and we can hand them this study and say, look, you know, the market's there. And that way they're more comfortable pulling the trigger. I know just since I've been here, I've been contacted and filled out 2 questionnaires about our hotel market, 2 companies that may want to locate here. And then in the future, if we get contacted again, we could fill out that questionnaire as well as attach this feasibility study, so that way we kind of have a leg up in that arena. When we were looking at the scope of work for this, you know, I think we solicited, we went out for bid. We had, I think, just 2 PJV and 1 other company come in, and it was a much larger scope of actually getting down to site work of where it could be located, the types of hotels, you know, and actually connecting us with those companies specifically. But then we decided for what the budget we had to scale it back and to just get a feasibility study, really a market analysis, so that we have that available to share with them. So that's what this is the executive summary of that market analysis. So.
How many hotel operators would want to come to a market that is operating at about 11 to 12% under the market occupancy level if this 100-room hotel would be built?
I think that's, I think that's a really valid question to ask. You may have trouble convincing a chain hotel to hang their flag here if they're seeing those numbers. It would probably take someone who is maybe a smaller developer that's done this before but on a smaller scale and is aware of how the risk is going to play in this and be willing to take that risk. We're advising another municipality that it's a confidential situation, but they are also trying to develop a hotel and they realize that they're in the same situation. Okay, now we're back. They're in the same situation of trying to get you know, on paper it doesn't look like the data is that great for a national chain, but a mid-sized developer, someone who's done this kind of specialty redevelopment project, they might come in and know what benefits are out there for them to try and pull off a project like this. So right now, hotels it's a booming time for people traveling, for destinations, for tourism, people wanting experiences to get away. So we're in a period right now where we're seeing a lot of interest in this kind of development.
Would you say the conference center is more of a necessity than the hotel?
Well, you know, that's, honestly, I don't want to answer that question because I think that's really up to you guys as the community. I don't feel like I can answer that question. But considering that you don't have a really large space with residential or, you know, hotel residents right next to it, I would say that's probably more likely to be needed than a conference center.
I would say we hear often from, whether it's the chamber or actually from having a statewide chamber conference here, hosting the tourism state conference, to the Missouri Main Street, which we were able to have and was successful. We had to get very creative on how to fit that. You know, I think there are a lot of organizations that feel we have the capability of hosting annual conferences, statewide conferences. It's just of actually getting people here, but it's the space that we don't have. You know, I think there is kind of a hole in our market there where we could tap into that. And that was part of this, where we wanted almost, a lot of times we feel like we're always hearing that the rooms are taken, that there's conferences that'd be willing to move here, but we don't have the space. And so we kind of wanted this study done to, you know, to have numbers to back that up. Or is that just something that we think we see here and that's not maybe reality? So we thought that was a worthwhile studying to see if that was, you know, actually the case.
Did we use Jesuit Hall from Missouri Main Street?
We used Jesuit Hall, but we also used the basement of the chamber before it was even done, as well as the Notre Dame building. So we had to use 3 different spaces. Now, they're all within walking distance. I mean, that's closer than when you go to a big conference center anyway. You got to walk through the big building, but none of those attendees were staying within walking distance. they all had to get, we had shuttles that were going from hotels down to downtown. So that was an extra cost that that Missouri Main Street, the Downtown Inc. and Missouri Main Street had to pay for. So we wanted to see if it was feasible to get a conference center here.
And I would add too, with a lot of these conferences, you want to have one large room for everyone to gather, but then have smaller rooms for breakout sessions throughout the day. And I don't think you have that capability right now, if I'm not mistaken. I
Yep.
think the expo has maybe one large room.
That's correct.
So that's a factor to consider as well. A lot of these, I mean, I go to probably 5 conferences a year, and there's always breakout sessions that want to fit about 40 people in, classroom size. So it's nice to have that opportunity, and everyone convenes at the end of the day to share, what they've discovered that day. For what it's worth.
Any other questions? Comments?
Appreciate all the stuff you and Sal has done. Said, I think it'd be great to get another hotel in Washington, The more bed tax, the more we can do. So I thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you guys. Just on a personal level, I've grown up in St. Louis, but we used to come to Washington a lot, for a day trip when I was a kid with my parents. And you guys have really done quite a bit to your downtown since then. I mean, I'm only 25, but you guys have really done a good job. So congratulations to you guys for that too. Good work.
Come back
Thank
and
you.
stay sometime.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good information.
Capital Improvement Sales Tax Presentation.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to try to talk loud enough. I bet you can hear me.
I bet we can, Kurt. I've heard.
I want to just thank everyone for letting us come. The committee, the council, and the mayor has appointed, worked very hard last fall and this winter to get to the point where we are now. We're now out bringing this, what we're asking the citizens of Washington to support in the renewal of the half-cent capital sales tax. So we'll just briefly go through the presentation that we're taking to all the civic organizations in the community. Hopefully answer any questions that you all might have, and then go from there. I'm so impressed that I was on YouTube. I've never been on YouTube before. So, again, it's a local tax. It's, where do I aim this thing at?
Hold on.
Back at
Here, I'm
there.
gonna let you run this thing. Just real briefly.
Oh, it's off.
It is a renewal of the half-cent sales tax. It's on the ballot for April the 3rd. It has an 8-year sunset. We have been, when we've spoken to the community, Chris and I have been out talking to them. It's a chance for the citizens to get a chance to say, hey, you've done a good job with the last 8 years, we're gonna give you 8 more. And it's for capital projects only, so we'll move through this. It's no new tax. I'm certainly not telling you all anything that you don't know, but it's a renewal. There are 2 taxes on the ballot in April that the voters will be dealing with, but this tax, if vote yes, does not increase anyone in the city of Washington's taxes. It's merely a renewal. You kind of see the history. We've been at this since 1989, or the city fathers came up with the original idea with the sunset. I think it's always been established that the city council had to show that they were good stewards of the taxpayers' money to earn another 8 years, and you can see what the tax has generated and what it's anticipated to generate over the next 8 years. And you can see, the Amazon effect. I mean, since 2003, the tax has really been pretty flat because even though we've had growth in the community in retail and in citizens, you can see that effect where folks are shopping online. But we anticipate 16.3 million. Historically, I think we've done it, the citizens, the city council's done a good job, the work with Chief, he was one of the members of our committee, and we worked on how many times, 7, 8 meetings to get to this point where we are today, but a lot of work for fire stations, public safety in the past. The library was a huge recipient when we came before the voters 8 years ago. Parks, obviously, and you just heard the downtown from the presentation that your consultant made on the improvements to downtown. Part of those improvements are a result of this half-cent sales tax. I like to, whenever you're going out, I was on the committee 8 years ago, and you can tell the voters, hey, we said we would do, or the city council would do what we said we would do, and that was the library. It was done. Check it off. Code red. Check it off. You can see the projects that were done with the last 8 cent, or the last 0.5% sales tax 8 years ago So we're hoping the voters will continue to see that and will see the worthy things that have been provided in the past, and will certainly honor this with a continuation. You know, Washington is home to about 15,000 residents, but we have far more people in the trade area that come to Washington, shop in Washington, and get the benefits of what this tax does, because it is for things like the parks, it is for things like the trail, it is for doing capital improvements in the industrial park. Even if you don't live in the city, you're getting the benefit of a great ISO rating, a cheap, you know, and that on your homeowner's insurance. So it's not just, even though it's voted on by the residents of the city, it really is a much larger geographical area that we're dealing with. You can kind of see the where we are on the tax. The bottom is what our tax rate is and what it would be if this tax were passed or approved again for 8 more years. The red line is if out in the community improvement district, out in with Phoenix Center and that. But I think our taxes are extremely competitive. Our elected officials have done a good job of taking care of this community and doing a good job. But you can see we certainly have a very low sales tax rate compared to surrounding communities, and even better if you travel into West St. Louis County. The other thing that this allows people like Darren and now Sal to do is we've been able to leverage not just the $16 million that this would raise over 8 years, but the opportunity to leverage those dollars, whether it's block grants for work in the industrial park, airport facilities, things like that, that it's allowed us to do that. You know, the example Darren and I were talking about here a week ago is, yeah, you know, you've got the new restaurants down on Front Street, but that parking lot in front, although that wasn't paid part of the sales tax allows us to leverage the team track to open up that facility to allow the railroad to rent it to us and make downtown a real gateway to the community. We estimate, there's the number, that will bring in $16.3 million to work on the projects that the community citizens group worked on. And as we've said going out, it's a unique tax in that many taxes are foisted down upon us for the projects come from the top down. They come from the House of Representatives, from the Senate. These projects come from the citizens and work their way up to the city council. I mean, we heard proposals for over $35 million, Chief. You know, Chris, everybody that came to this meeting had an idea of what they needed in that committee. I can tell you it was the hardest job that I've been on, is working with the sales tax committee to whittle that list down to get it into the window of what the planned budget of $16.3 million is. But it's projects from the citizens that brought this up. We took comments from at open forums, with the Survey Monkey, we looked at the comprehensive plan. So it's really a citizen-driven improvements that they're looking to see in the community, and they're willing to vote to do those. You can kind of go now with, here's kind of what the committee is recommending, is about $930,000 over 8 years would be spent downtown to utility burial on Front Street, replacing the pavers that are starting to go. Some maintenance work that needs to be done on the depot, both depots in the Waterworks building, get the light fixtures, and then improvements down in Riverfront Park, down on that area. The fire department, we are very fortunate in this community. I talked about the ISO rating, and that's kind of one of the real hidden benefits of the work that our volunteer fire department does. And we don't have a property tax earmarked for fire department, but they've been very good stewards. The growth that we see in this community is moving southeast, and a need for possibly a fire station in that part of town. Chief has on a very good plan of replacing trucks every 5 years, apparatus, and our self-contained breathing apparatus have a life expectancy of about 10 to 15 years, or how many years?
15.
We're on 15. So, and the last thing we want to do is send someone into a burning building, a burning factory, and you know, you've read the stories where people with self-contained breathing apparatus go out in St. Louis. I think they had some situations here a few years back that it's not pleasant. So, and then some communication. So that's the fire department we're recommending. The police department, I know there were some situations with, I think we heard at the presentation, a pretty serious accident on Bluff Road, and communications. We can't even talk to our officers from the public safety building, you know, 2-3 miles away. This will allow us to do that, replace the sirens in the community, and computer upgrades, and staying on top of that with communications. Going into the next area, economic development, starting with Darren, and well, Dick Oldenburg, then Darren, and now Sal. You know, is improvements, you know, as we move forward with less land in the industrial park, it's going to be important for that, and the airport master, working with a master layout plan for the airport is kind of where the committee went with economic development and saw some things needed. Public works, several things, continuing with slip lining, just like the fire department is seeing a need in the southeastern part of town. The long-range water study that the Public Works Board had conducted shows a need probably the next, 5 to 10 years, 4 to 8 years of an additional 1 million gallons of water storage on the southeastern part of town. Does a lot of things. A, it's helped with making sure we're taken care of in dry times. B, it's important for fire that we keep the fire flows up, and with the community moving that direction, and also some equipment storage to get some of the equipment we have from outside inside. And then energy efficiency in not only this building, but all municipal buildings going on, and some savings there, hopefully, with the taxpayers on that. And then Parks and Recreation is where we spend a lot of time as the committee. There was a lot of discussion, and I think it was healthy discussion. And as I didn't come to the committee with any preconceived notion on a swimming pool or a complex, but everyone I talked to a T, I talked to them at Rotary, I talked to them after church, I talked to them at events, people said a town this size has to have a swimming pool. And these are people that I was expecting to tell me, no, gosh, no. And it became very clear through that process that an aquatic complex is very important to this community for parents, for grandparents, for athletic purposes. So the committee basically came down with, we are going to have an outdoor aquatic complex as part of this if the voters agree to it. That's not to say that an indoor facility could not happen as part of a study, but definitely committing to an outdoor complex. Work at Hillerman, the Hillerman Park restrooms are the ones out in the fairgrounds when you get on off the buses. More storage for them, and update some of the pavilions that we have in the community, as well as doing something with the city auditorium. It's a building that's, the committee decided something needs to be done with it. It's not air conditioned, its functionality is kind of limited. There's an opportunity with capital improvement to do that. And then some other areas, the Rumsey Field improvements, moving that from a grassy field, Phoenix Park, finishing off the skate park that was promised originally, to get that done, and then some other playgrounds in Crow, and then of course with the Fair Board, the main stage roof improvement, and the fencing around the main stage to allow that area to be used for more than just 5 days a year for the fairgrounds. I mean, the Fair Board was the one that came forward and presented that, but with Oxfest and some of the other events out there, it's a use that the city has. It's underutilized, the committee felt, because of the limiting factors of a roof and the fencing. So you kind of see how that's broken down by category. And well, yeah, that's what showed up on mine the other day when I sent you that email. And then lastly, this is what the ballot proposal looks like. It's not a new tax increase, it's just a renewal. So we're certainly hoping that you will, if you have any questions or any constituents have any questions, that this was helped you answer those. If Chris and I, or Chief, or the mayor can answer any questions, we'd be glad to do it. But we certainly appreciate your support and think it's one of the things that's really helped bring Washington, keep this community on the cutting edge, and it's the little extra that we can continue to do in the next 8 years. So, any questions? Any suggestions? We'll be out probably talking to over a dozen groups in the next month and trying to answer their questions and assuage any concerns that voters might have. But we appreciate your time this evening, and thank you very much for making this a great community to live in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
I appreciate how fast you got that done.
There you go.
Great job.
They picked the right guy for that job.
Thank you, Kurt.
Report of departments. Public Safety, Police.
Very good.
Chief?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Council has before you a letter from Officer Griffin and myself about traffic safety grants for 2018-2019 budget year. We're seeking the normal grants we seek: hazardous moving violation, youth alcohol enforcement, DWI enforcement, and also a crash mapping and data collection software. That is for a device we have called a Total Station, which does mapping of accident scenes. We use it for serious accident scenes and fatality accident scenes. We can also use it for crime scenes. The training will enable us to have officers available to do it for all those items. We also share with Union in assisting each other in investigation of major accidents. So if they have a couple people available trained, they bring them here, and we've recently sent a couple to them to help them assist with fatality accidents and that. So this letter just needs, it has a page from MoDOT authorization, just authorization from council that you agree that we can seek these grants. That has to be sent before we can say this is the grants we want. So that will just need to go to council for signatures. And it's all 100% funded.
Do we need a
City pays
motion
no
to
money.
send to council?
Right, we need to discuss and then send it on to council, so a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Solentrup, seconded by Hydrich, to send this on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you approved sending that on. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Any questions of Chief, of anything else? Okay.
Fire protection?
Bill?
Basically, we're in the, just completed the first phase of the data compile for our insurance service office review. We had a 4-hour meeting Thursday evening with the grader, Jim Alsop. We left him about 12 pounds of paper, and we took their pre-survey forms and attached 26 exhibits for the city of Washington to make sure that what we really do in reality is backed up by the data, because phase 1 of the program, he takes all this back to his office and they review the data in a back office shop and then come back with a first round of recommendations. But we wanted to make sure that he had the differences and explanations that went with the data. For example, unlike a lot of departments, we have a on-the-quiet response. We just had one this afternoon where someone calls in on Locust Street and says they have a CO detector sounding. Upon questioning from dispatch, there's no symptoms, no headaches, no nausea accompanied with CO. That's an on-the-quiet response. Our concern is that our on-the-quiet response affects our response times in the data. So we define those specifically. We define the protocols that warrant on-the-quiet response and that kind of thing in an effort to provide detailed explanation to ISO of what our response times are. Reason is we're looking at Washington in two aspects. There's two NFPA standards that cover the standards of cover, they call it in the fire service. NFPA 1710, which is specifically for career departments, and 1720, which is for volunteer departments. We have asked the ISO and the consultant I have to look at both the 1710 and the 20, because according to our software data, which we account for the on-the-quiet responses, we can actually meet the career department response times. We are under the national average. 1710 requires you got to be on the scene within 90% of the time, within 320 seconds. That equates to 5.3 minutes. All of our average response times within the city are 4 minutes and 20-some seconds or less. And that includes some of the on-the-quiet responses. So that's the kind of things we're doing with ISO. Understand that there's tremendous changes taking place with the new schedule. They have changed, and I explained this morning real briefly, but it's going to put greater emphasis on our subdivision alignment and through streets, for example, because they have changed the verbiage where before, for a new fire station, they looked at what they called the built-upon area. And the definition of the built-upon area is the number of fire hydrants, and I think I told you this before, reaches 51% of the hydrant census within a mile and a half of a fire station. You need another fire station. They no longer use that verbiage. The verbiage used now is unprotected road miles. So that's going to be a extenuating circumstance to further review the east because of the distance between Highway 100, for example, down Rabbit Trail to the developments that lay southeast. When you reach a mile and a half from House 4 by how the truck travels, the rest of that distance in our ISO is considered unprotected road miles. And it's going to go by road miles, not just hydrant count. So there's a lot of things we're learning as we go because it's a new schedule. And the other thing that ISO made clear was that because we're currently a Class 3, they will probably be reviewing us on every 4 to 5 year basis. So we have forwarded all the information to ISO. We provided a duplicate copy to ESCI, who is our consultant. I've already gotten follow-up questions today. I'm working on with ESCI. So we're hoping to have some type of direction, if at all possible. There's a lot of dynamics to this. We'd like to have some type of direction on the consultant's recommendation prior to the sales tax vote, because the sales tax affects tremendously funding the fire station to the southeast, if that's what everybody agrees to, from ISO and the consultant. So we're in the process of giving the information to do to put them in a position to make that decision and recommendation to you all. And they will be here, Stuart McCutcheon and Stuart McElhaney. The company is housed in Florida, but I've got them preparing to make a presentation here in person. So whenever that happens, I'll get a hold of Darren ahead of time and we'll set that up. Try and keep Darren in the loop on the preliminary information. You guys should be getting preliminary findings and questions, and then they'll change and adapt based on what we answer to make sure that what reality is what the data reflects. That's my concern. Any
Okay.
questions?
Any questions of Chief?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Communications.
Lisa?
I spoke with Motorola last Friday. They finally have the piece of equipment that they needed to put onto our system to see what's going on so that we can move that project forward. I've also, we are currently undergoing a 911 upgrade with Franklin County. It's a Franklin County-wide upgrade with all the PSAPs. And we'll be getting new equipment. Dispatchers will be getting new training beginning the week of the 12th. And on this Wednesday, they'll be changing out the router that is currently at our location. So for about an hour, we will not have 911. However, those will be answered over at Franklin County, and then they will contact us either by business line or radio to transfer any kind of calls that they might possibly receive. It will also affect our 7-digit lines, the administrative lines that are on the 911 system, the 4722 number and the ring downs for that. So it'll occur at every PSAP individually in about an hour at our location. That's about it.
Lisa? Good. Do we need to back up like we did last time at headquarters or no?
No, you will not need to back us up at headquarters. We won't have to stage anybody there. Like I said, the 911 calls, they'll be answered at Franklin County, and then they'll call us on business line or by radio.
Okay.
Steve?
Are we caught up with dispatchers now, or are you still looking?
I still have one opening, and I still have 2 people in training.
For a job.
I'm still filling in.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Emergency management.
Mark?
Good evening, council members. We got finished in the past month the NIMS IS 700, so that completes the basic training for employees. We had the ICS for senior and elected officials last Thursday. I had a good time. I hope those who attended did okay too. We at least didn't have to call the ambulance for anyone getting ill. We had CPR classes for all the police officers this month, so they're all recertified now for 2 years. I gave the annual emergency manager's report to the city administrator for his review. And the warming centers in the city are all closed down, so plans are being made to give a formal thanks to Mercy for providing that service for us, which was fantastic. In progress, monitoring the creeks and rivers this weekend. We went from a drought of 9 inches to 6 inches of rain in 1 week. So we're in pretty good shape. The Missouri's in good shape. The creeks are pretty well back in their banks here. The southern half of the county is having a few more trouble with it, but had pretty minimal impact for us. We are scheduling CPR classes for dispatchers, and we have an open CPR class for employees. I think it's on the 22nd or the 23rd. In a positive PR, KMOV Channel 4 will have a storm team at Washington High on March 8th. So what they'll do, they'll come into town, set up, they'll have live shots from Washington High at their 4, 5, and 6 o'clock shows. And then their program begins at 6:30 and lasts for about an hour and a half. So that'll be coming up on March 8th. The statewide tornado drill coming up March 6th at 10 a.m. And that week is Severe Weather Awareness Week in Missouri. So the National Weather Service will be sponsoring other events, but that's our primary event. And the next step in the NIMS class, NIMS 200, that's for first-line supervisors, and we've scheduled that for March 15th. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Parks and Recreation?
Darren couldn't make it tonight. I'm going to go ahead and give his report for you. He's working on, or they are working on, roofing projects. They're preparing specs and going out to bid for roofing repairs based on insurance claims to various city facilities. We've gone through the list or whatever. I can share that with you, or I'll have Darren share that with you when we get those specs put together. Trail railings, they're out to bid. There's a quote for the culvert railings on the Rotary Riverfront Trail expansion. Porta potties, they're out to bid, and quote for on the provision of porta potties at various locations within the parks. Burger Park, they held a volunteer work day Saturday. They had 15 volunteers from the Lions and Elks and assisted in the removal of the fence fabric out there, and it was going to be, this will help us in the grading of the park. We've got to do some work to unlevelness that we've had out there, and also for the development of the disc golf course. Tree trimming and removal, they're continuing with the pruning and removal of hazardous trees. And tree inventory, the consultant has finished the field assessment and will be providing us with reports within the next few weeks. And then finally, energy efficiency for all our municipal buildings. They've completed the field assessment and will be providing findings and cost estimates within the next couple of weeks. So I'll do my best to answer any questions you have in the parks.
Darren, I saw in the paper about the vandalism that we had down here at the riverfront parking lot, the rock parking lot is.
Okay.
Do you think we could take a cable, put it across there, and have the police department closing it up? I talked to John about this today. Closing that area off at dark because there's no lighting in there. You never know what can happen in there. Plus, the people on East Main Street had called me and complained about it, the noise down there and doing the donuts. And now that we have,
So we can look at a way to go ahead and close it off. I don't know what would be the best.
I'd rather use a gate than a wire.
Yeah.
Right. That's what Steve and I talked, or Councilman Sonnetrop and I talked about that today, is just making sure that if there was some sort of a chain, wire, or something, that makes sure that it's very, very visible, you know, with some sort of fabric or something, so it's, you know, somebody could see it if they were driving up to it. I did speak with Darren today, Darren Dunkel today at around 4:30, and he was agreeing with a gate as well, so I think that's something that can easily be done. So Darren Dunkel and I will be talking about that, how to get that taken care of. One concern I would have with a gate is it does flood down there, so just making sure that we're all coordinated on getting it opened back up if flooding is, you know, is forecasted to happen, just so we don't damage it.
I know, you know, kids need a place to go and have their fun, but they've taken advantage of it down there, and they went into the grass and did donuts, and we're not finding out who's doing it, right, Chief? So if it gets dark, they don't have no reason to be in there.
We get complaints, but they see them, but they can't get license plates off of them, just a vehicle.
That's what I was wondering.
Well, my opinion is if we keep them out of there during the dark time, then we won't have a problem. Because during the day, people see them, doing donuts, people are gonna see them during the day.
We can also look at the possibility of continuing with our camera surveillance and see if that would help deter. We'll take a look at that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Community,
On the planning side, our planning and zoning agenda for March is being set this week. Anything that requires a public hearing, the deadline's been passed, so we only have 2 items on the agenda right now, but if something that does not require a public hearing comes in tomorrow, we can still get it on the agenda. Staff reports in the packet for that go out Friday. We are continuing to market all the property that we have left. We will have an update on something in executive session I sent an email on earlier today, but we can discuss later and answer any questions you may have. We do have 4 current prospects we're still working with, or current potential projects. Hopefully we'll get some updates on those soon. We do have, our 353 board does have a subcommittee working on new industrial park development, kind of trying figuring out what next steps are as we do continue to sell off the remaining property and figure out, what direction we want to move for new park development, especially if we are fortunate enough to have the sales tax be renewed, as there is funds allocated for matching funds and industrial park development. On Wednesday, I do have the new liaison for DED in the St. Louis area coming to town for a tour. We'll go to lunch and then show him Washington. He has not been to Washington since he started that position, and that'll be, we'll now have 2 contacts, one in Jeff City and one in St. Louis, for when we have potential projects. They can, that St. Louis contact can come out and meet with industries with us here in town, and if they have any questions on statewide incentive programs. So that'll be good to have that contact, get them familiar with Washington. Our sharing economy met actually again today, right before this, right at 5:30. We are making some progress on narrowing down that scope. There has been some discussion on, the reason we actually haven't scheduled the workshop is because there's been just some discussion on code revisions on whether we should visit the actual, how our city code manages short-term lodging, and specifically, before we actually get to a workshop. If we're going to educate the public on our current process, we don't want to realize that maybe we have a situation where we may have a code revision right after we educate the public. So I may be tapping 1 or 2 of you to come to our next workshop committee to discuss that with them, to talk about the code revision process and maybe see what direction we think that committee should send this, if we should just have an educational workshop on our current process, or maybe we should kind of revamp this before maybe it gets to a larger issue. So I will send out an email on that. And then lastly, I do want to update, and I know I brought it up briefly before, and I kind of want some direction before I get an actual public hearing scheduled for a code amendment. Currently, our code allows for when you're doing a boundary adjustment, so instead of doing, if you're not creating a new lot, if you're not doing a subdivision, and you're just moving a property boundary, it only has to go, it can bypass planning and zoning, but it can go to city, it has to go to city council for review. Yes, and an ordinance has to be passed. I would say, almost every time that these come in, they're very simple boundary adjustments where one property is buying, one neighbor is buying some property from another, or someone is just moving a boundary. Honestly, internally, all we look at is to make sure each lot meets the zoning code when it's done, that they won't be too small for the new zone district. Actually, they move this property boundary, and we look at all the existing easements. And if there are easements between the property, we make sure that the plat notes those same easements on the new adjusted boundary. My proposal would be is that we amend the code, and I can bring this forward to P&Z and back to City Council in an actual public setting, but I wanted to get some input here tonight. The proposal would be to remove that requirement to have an ordinance passed and go to City Council, so that these boundary adjustments can be approved administratively by city staff as long as they meet minimum zoning requirements, and we see that after the line has been moved, the boundary has been adjusted, that they meet the zoning district requirements. And if they do, they can be signed off by the zoning administrator and city clerk, because they will be bringing a plat in and be sent to the county to be recorded. I've checked with the county. They have no requirement for an ordinance to be passed. As long as it's signed off by some city in some capacity, they can record it. I know a lot of counties do this. I know Franklin County actually and Jefferson County both do minor subdivisions, in fact, and boundary adjustments can be approved administratively to kind of streamline the process. Sometimes these people come in with a plat and it's simply moving the boundary 10 feet, and it takes 2 to 3 weeks to get approved when we know it's really not going to have any issue. So it's just something to think about if you think that that's all, boundary adjustment is something that you all would like to see and continue to review as they come in. We can keep the process as is, but I thought it's something we could streamline and not only take some maybe items off the agenda, but also make it quicker for our citizens that are applying for these.
When you do an ordinance like this, is that the 150 feet?
No, we don't even notify neighbors on these, so.
It's not a rezoning, or it's not something that warrants a public hearing. It's just a approval item on your agenda, and in the past, it was approval item even on planning and zoning. Several years ago, before we streamlined it to just go directly to the council, it went to planning and zoning commission. Well, it depends upon when they brought that in, they could wait an additional month because of the fact that they had to wait for planning and zoning to go ahead and approve it. We streamlined it to send it directly to the council because, of course, you guys meet twice a month for ordinance approval. But this, as Sal said, there's many jurisdictions that if you meet those, it's not any different than you wouldn't sign off on every building permit that the building department writes, or approves. If they meet the code and it's there, you can go ahead and have staff go ahead and approve it. It would be, I think, an easier way for streamline your agendas, but more importantly, probably to our citizens that are just looking for that boundary line adjustment or whatever, it can be done a lot faster.
So instead of planning and zoning meeting, talking about it once a month, we can get it done within the 3 meetings that we have a month.
We could even, as a matter of fact, and if council wanted to, Sal could go ahead and give a report as to which ones, if there was any done that month, we could go ahead and say boundary adjustment was these 4 were done, or 1.
Yeah, we typically have at least 2 a month, I would say. These come in all the time.
But currently, it does not go to planning and zoning. It just comes straight to
It does-
council.
We did streamline it to skip planning and zoning and go straight to council, but what we didn't do was take it to the level of just letting staff go ahead and approve it as long as, like Sal said, as long as it meets those minimum lot size for the zoning district, as long as there's no issue with utility easements, et cetera.
Yeah, that's really it. We look at those 2 items, and if they meet those requirements, we put it on the agenda.
I think that makes sense, just to bring it to us. I would like to see it come up here and be discussed just for a little bit.
We can bring it up, like I said, after the fact. If you're amenable to it, we could give you a report of these are the ones that we approved this month, so you know.
I think if you're just talking about those 2 requirements, I don't see a reason why you couldn't do it that way.
And isn't it a little bit of a money saving, since we wouldn't have to make ordinances?
I don't think, we don't have a charge, do we?
We do, it's $75. There's a
Okay.
$75
Yeah,
application
then I would.
fee currently. So, and we could keep that or remove that. I mean, to be honest, I wasn't proposing to remove the application fee. Because that's just for staff time to review. We don't put it in the paper. Our applications that are more expensive, they're more expensive because we have to put them in the paper and we have to send out mailings. We don't have to do that for boundary adjustments. All it is printed on the agenda and taking the staff time to review it.
I'd keep that the way it is.
All right.
I agree.
And I'll bring an
Agree
action.
And
to-
I was meaning not waiving a fee, but on our part is time and consumption of making an ordinance, stuff like that. That should be money
Yeah.
savings on our part.
Yeah, it'll free up some time.
That's what I was talking about,
Yeah.
not taking away a fee.
That's true. It'll save up time on having to, Gina, right now, if these come in, I sign off on them, and then we give them to Gina to actually get the ordinance drafted to give up to Mary. And this time, I would look at it, I'd sign off on it, that would be it.
I would also add, there could be some potential soft savings to the actual citizens, because there wouldn't be as much back and forth with their surveyor, calling the city, going back and forth on that. So potentially, there could be some soft savings. I don't know how we would quantify that or track that, but.
There certainly would be time savings for
Absolutely.
the
Which
citizen.
equals money.
Yeah, so, I mean, it seems like less red tape in this situation would benefit everyone.
Correct.
So, all right, well, it sounds like I should at least get a proposal for a code amendment. I'll bring that forward to planning and zoning in March, and then to you all the following week. So, actually, it'll be the second meeting in March, because what we have to do is, for a code amendment, and I'll check with Mark tomorrow, but it should be 2 public hearings, I believe, for a code amendment, one at P&Z and one at council, so we'll have to wait a little bit in between to get them both noticed up, but.
You think you should send an email out to the 2 people that aren't here tonight?
Yeah, I can give a summary of my proposal, and what I'll actually do is I'll try and get a code amendment drafted up. Whenever it was when Darren amended it a couple of years back, It should be fairly simple to amend that same section, so it couldn't take too long, so.
So we're amending it, we are suggesting to amend it to that could all be done in-house.
Yes.
Being
Staff
found at the staff level, and those things would not have to come to the council for approval.
Correct.
The
Right.
ordinance, correct.
We wouldn't need that ordinance anymore, but then you would report to what boundary adjustments you did that month.
Yep.
Okay,
Sounds good.
thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks.
Public services?
I'm good. Okay, I'll try to be as brief as I possibly can. With the airport, we have had a situation with the Lake Creek levee. There's a levee that protects the entire airport and approximately 3,000 acres of farm ground. The Ditso levee district is in control of that levee. There's a pipe that actually has a flap gate. We call it a flap gate. It keeps the water out when Lake Creek comes up, but allows water to leave when Lake Creek is down. There's a situation there, we need to do some maintenance on that through the levee district. Now, we paid the levee district dues into the levee district. It is their responsibility to fix that. So I'm working with the levee district as we speak. I actually had a conversation with 2 people within the district today. They're pulling together some bids to get that done. We will need to allow the district and whoever their contractor is to pass through our property to get to this repair. I don't see an issue with that. So once I get that compiled, that will probably be in front of you because it would potentially may need a temporary construction easement to do that. As for the landfill, we were doing very well until 6 inches of rain over 5 days. So that actually slowed down a little bit. I believe the contractor should be back into town next week. He just had the stage and wait for everything to dry out. It has a March 30th deadline to get that grading done, but like I said, we're on track for that. I don't see any issues or concerns with that. Bluff Road, just another update. Right-of-way has been now, all the paperwork has been done for right-of-way. It's been sent to MoDOT to get that all acquired and to finalize that process. I did report an April 2nd start date of that. I am getting a little concerned that we may not be able to meet that just with the timelines through MoDOT, but I'll keep you posted on when that's going to be. We do have about a 2-week buffer before the fair. That was supposed to be a July 15th ending date. I did that for a reason, just to allow us a little bit of time. We could also look at compressing that construction time down a little bit, which would be really helpful for everybody. So I'll keep you posted on that deadline, but everything is in front of MoDOT. Been made aware of a couple issues with sidewalk on Front Street, specifically in front of some of the catch basins. They had some settlement issues. Over time, if you don't get those compacted very well, sidewalks will settle around them. I will have a contractor in probably in the next 2 weeks to mud jack those up to get them back flush again. People use the Front Street sidewalks, seems like throughout the day. So I want to make sure we keep those safe, no trip hazards, things of that nature. It's a little proactive sidewalk measure, which is better than being reactive on those situations. Elbert Drive, we're finalizing the specs to pave Elbert Drive and the parking lot. That's the trail connection, Rotary Riverfront Trail. This came up about a year ago. We didn't get it done because I didn't want to have the asphalt trucks, 18-ton asphalt trucks driving over top of the newly paved Elbert Drive. So we're finalizing those plans. There will be a reconfiguration of the parking lot. More parking stalls will be constructed. There'll be a little island there. I've talked with Darren Dunkel about that. There's that little landscape island that'll turn out pretty nice. It'll have a 12-foot walking path, just like it is on the trail. ADA ramp to Lafayette. Right now, I'm targeting a May 1st completion date. So as soon as the asphalt plant's open, we're going to get it paved, and then that'll get the trail portion opened up as well. And then within the engineering department, we had $35,000 budgeted for a new survey truck. I don't know if you guys have seen, there's a 2002 blue Dodge truck that more or less looks like a Barbie car. But we're working on trying to get that upgraded. It's in the budget. We actually got bids back, $34,800 worth of bids came back. I actually challenged my immediate staff to look into some cost savings on that because I felt that was a little excessive for a survey truck. We were able to essentially shrink down some of the needs on that truck by going with different boxes and different rollouts for survey equipment. So it saved about $6,000. So we were under budget, but we went back and did a little value engineering to kind of save some money on that. So I will have that sales contract and ordinance in front of you guys hopefully next week. So I apologize I didn't have that for this meeting. Last thing here, oh, there's two other things. Schultz Detention Basin with Sal's project. It's approximately 50% complete. I just want to emphasize that to the layman who may be driving by the Schultz Detention Basin, there was a pond there, right, a lake that was there for, I don't even know how many years. That lake is being filled in, but it's being filled in a way to where it turns into a dry detention basin. So you have water surface that's going away. It only has so much volume of water to detain. The new design will actually increase or will actually reduce the amount of flow rates downstream to the downstream properties by about 15%. So it's actually an improvement to stormwater detention within the Schultz Industrial Park and downstream properties. So I just want to emphasize that I get a lot of calls, well, why are they filling the lake in? We're filling the lake in to improve things downstream. So keep that in mind. And then finally, with this report, East-West Gateway Grant, I just saw an email came at the end of the day. They will be due June 14th. I'm targeting 3rd Street still from Jefferson to 47 to get repaved. That'll work out really well because the bridge will open up and we'll roll right into getting new sidewalks on 3rd Street. Works out really well with our ADA transition plan as well because that's scheduled to be done in May. We'll get those extra points that I've been telling you about, hopefully, and we should score really well on getting it this time around. And I will have a few more once we get down to Kevin's.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions of John?
Building inspections?
John?
Well, yes, we're staying busy. Casey's looks like it's staying on schedule. The hospital, again, has got, is it 3 current small projects going on right now? Got plenty of plans in for new houses and a couple of duplexes on my desk right now. As you've probably seen driving by, you know, Frykes is going great guns, and they've turned in plans for another phase, so we're moving along.
Any questions of John?
Street solid waste?
Tony?
Good evening. As we talked before, we are going to be grinding our mulch pile the week of March 12th. We did have 3 bids. We did accept Hanson's Tree Service at $22,750. We are also in the process of getting some litter fences built for the landfill. We went out and looked at some prefab ones that were out of state, and then we got some quotes from some local businesses, and Haslag Steel actually came in as a better option for us. So they're going to be 25 by 15 feet tall, and we'll be able to move them around with our equipment. It's going to be a good option now that we're moving on with the landfill. And we are also going to be working the Berger Park once the fences are down to help get that leveled out. We're still working the electrical conduit project during the nice weather. We have a DNR solid waste certification class for myself and 2 other employees coming up in March, and we're just going to be patching potholes hopefully this week also. Tony, speaking of potholes, on Washington Heights, down by the swimming pool, just be south of 100, there's a big chunk out of there unless you guys got to it already.
Yeah, I'll add that to our list. I'll put
Thank
that on
you
there
very much.
tonight. The area actually is, we're patching it, but it really needs to be milled out and repaired properly. But at this time, with the asphalt plants being down, the best we can do is kind of keep them clean and patch them up for now.
That's not from any effect of that work that was done underneath there, is it?
The what?
That's not any effect from the work that was done underneath that area?
No.
Right now, is it?
It's just been gradually falling apart, so.
Yeah, it's been there for years.
Any other questions? Okay.
Water and wastewater?
Okay, Kevin is at a conference this evening, wastewater conference. So a couple items with the rain event we did have. We are still, chasing our infiltration situation. We did have a sewer backup on High Street on Saturday afternoon. I still don't have the exact information how many residents had issues in their homes, but I'm working with Kevin on getting that. In addition, Front Street went into high water alarm. The lift station, Walnut Street lift station went into high water alarm. There's pump 3 on that lift station is actually in repair right now. There was a maintenance a warranty type item. They had to pull the pump to get it replaced. Fortunately, had this rain event in the intermediate time, so it kind of, we had a situation down there. Though, from what I gather from that, there was only one resident on Front Street that had a backup, and it is a reoccurring backup, so we're working on getting that resolved. One item we could do that with is placing a manhole, I believe, in front of the pipe factory. There's a parallel line there that has a Y connection that we can't get up into to clean out. The best that we can tell is it's about 30% clogged with silt and sediment. So if I can drop a manhole in there, then I have access to it and I can jet that line out. So we're going to be working on that here, hopefully in the next 4 to 6 weeks, trying to resolve that. Bigger item that Kevin wanted me to discuss was the fuel system software and hardware upgrade. Within your packet, there was a memo there. The fuel system, or the existing fuel system was installed in 1993. There's been one upgrade to that software. Kevin described it to me that we report to how much fuel usage we have. We report just how the tanks are functioning, things of that nature, to DNR. They are underground storage tanks. It's a pretty standard reporting process. However, the software that's being utilized and the hardware is just out of date, essentially. And it's becoming extremely hard for us to get the information to DNR in an efficient manner. So what we're requesting is to upgrade the fuel system monitoring at the Public Works facility and move forward with that. So I can try to answer any questions on that, but it's a pretty straightforward upgrade.
Any questions?
Motion to send to council?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Brinker, seconded by Waterman to send this on to council. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? By your vote, you've decided to send it on. Thank you.
Finance? Yeah, the only item we got is that they'll be having utility water shut-offs will start tomorrow. And that's it.
Library?
Claire?
We circulated a little over 11,000 items in January, pretty close to what we did this time last year. We had 99 new patrons added to the system, and 40 of them were actually part of our library district. We also processed 64 passports. That's going up steadily. More and more people are coming into the library for that, and hopefully we will have 4 additional passport agents ready to serve the public pretty soon. It's a big deal. The fees for passports will be going up to $35 April 1st, so it'll be a $10 increase in what the library gets from people that come to us for that service. We also sent and received 906 items from the 41 library network across the state. So our patrons heavily utilize items from other libraries, and then we also send out a lot of our stuff too. We had 704 people come to our programs last month, and we had 9,600 people come through the doors. So we are busy. The biggest program right now is Tot Time. That's the little bitty guys, and we had 200 people, or 200 little kids and their families come to 6 sessions. So that's a lot of kids in a little space, so.
That's an awesome program.
Yep. Scenic Regional doesn't offer Tot Time. They just do preschool story time, and so people come from Union to our library to do that. So we had parents as teachers come in to do a little presentation about the screening that they do for kids, and she happened to show up when we had 45 people that day, so she had a room full.
Any questions of Claire?
Human Resources?
Evening.
Shauna?
We're busy hiring, so you've probably seen the advertisements. We just filled the wastewater treatment plant operator mechanic position. We did the process, we did external and internal candidate interviews for that process, and the position was filled with an internal candidate who best fit what we needed for that position. Building inspector, we did have that ad placed, and we've made an offer of employment and are in the pre-employment process with that candidate. If all goes according to plan, we will have that position filled by March 5th. Dispatcher, we do have one position open. We've renewed our ad and extended our search area to try to get more qualified candidates for dispatch. Our police department, we have 2 officers that we're seeking, and we have that position that closes this Friday. Applications for that process will close this Friday, the 28th. And then finally, our seasonal summer employment, we're getting ready to gear up towards that. And I'm proposing that the city would host a job fair for those positions, where we would host a job fair here at City Hall, where we could allow potential employees to come in, learn about the positions that are open for seasonal summer help, find out maybe if there is a job that they're interested in. We could face-to-face do interviews on site. They could fill out applications on site and leave them, and that allows us for those positions that are for our teenagers, maybe the 16, 17-year-olds who've never filled out an application, they could bring their parent here with them. We could help them fill out applications and an interview on site. I'm working with the Parks Department and with the Street Department to fill those positions, like a pool cashier, our camp counselors, and then maintenance workers within the Street Department as well as the Parks Department. So that we're hoping to get that up and running and maybe look by the second week of March to have that job fair here at City Hall. We are also working on making our application available online. Currently, that is not a process that is available to our workforce. So we're looking at finding a way to get that application put online so that people that maybe can't get here Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, can still apply to become employed by the City of Washington. So we are working to get that on our city website. And then the other item that I have is our time clock. So the city is in the process of upgrading our time clock system to it's called ExecuTime. It's a Tyler software program, and we are still in the planning phase, but the time clocks are on site, so we do have those. We will be getting the proximity badges, which is the new badge that we will use for people to clock in and out, and we're starting to develop a pilot group, which will include a group of employees that will start using the new time clock before we switch over completely, just to make sure it's working the way that we want it to work. I'm working with information technology as well as finance to make sure we can implement this time clock system effectively, and we're hoping to start training and working with our pilot group in March. That's all I have this evening.
Any questions of Shauna? Okay,
City
thank
Clerk?
you.
The only thing I'd want to report on to you is I wrapped up the AT&T mobility research that I've been doing, and I was able to save $8,800 a year on our bill. So, any questions?
Nope.
Administration.
Great job.
We'll continue to work on capital improvement sales tax, as Kurt had mentioned earlier. The mayor and I will go ahead and participate with the speakers team or whatever that go out to those organizations in case we cannot advocate for the tax, but we can be there in case they have any questions about past use of the funds or any other budget questions that they may have with regards to the city. And as Kurt said, we've got about 12 to 15 other places. I think there's a few more that might be added as we move along. Also, we will also be busy with, I believe, KLPW will have probably 5 or 6 opportunities throughout between now and up till the election so that we can be on air and answer any questions that folks may have as a result. I think Diane Jones was looking at trying to go ahead and set that up with different categories, and then at the end just have an overall thing about the capital improvement sales tax, which will try to break it down in maybe public safety, parks and recreation, et cetera, those topics for different shows. So I'll be busy with that. I'm also looking at your leases that we have, et cetera. There's a bunch of them out there that we're trying to go ahead and take care of the ones we need to look at first and foremost. That's all I have. We do have a couple items for you in executive session.
Okay. Any questions of Darren?
Council comments?
I got one. Last week, last council meeting, we had talked about the mic systems and everything about going out for bids and things of that nature. I want to back up one, because I still think we need to do that. I think it's real important. But I made a comment in here regarding the sound system, the equipment being faulty, and somebody brought it to my attention that I made it sound like it was Matt Wilson's fault. But I want to clarify that Matt inherited a lot of these problems. So I want to make sure that that's cleared up and that, you know, we move forward. With that said, I think that as we're looking at these mics and everything, some of the faults we still have are with that charter system back there. So I'm asking, do we still need that charter system? We're going to this new online system. I think that would resolve a lot of issues. And if we're going to do that, do we need to be looking at our cameras? Because our cameras are, what, 10, 15 years old, something of that nature?
That was part of the package that he had for you. I think he had a series of mics, audio, and then he also had the video to update and get better mics. As a matter of fact, you all will be in much more HD in the future. So that was the idea. So, but with that being said, we can't take we've always had the idea that we wanted to go ahead and keep all options open. If it turns out that we're having much more problems with the charter, just that, I agree with you. We will probably go ahead and take that out. But I do know that there's a segment of our population out there that still rely upon that. We don't want to take that away. So when it is working and functioning.
But what part of our segment actually watches that anymore? I mean, do we even? Is there anybody?
I don't know. I think we do though.
I think more people than what you think.
But you know, if we're making this change to this new system, you know, I would be all for just shutting one off and kind of nudging people to go to this new direction so that we're under one system, that we only have to worry about one system.
Let me just say this. It's my understanding we're enhancing what we have. We're not just recreating everything. Those mics that you have in front of you, they're going to continue. The equipment back there, it's not a complete overhaul from what I understand. It's just, there are some things, like I said, I think he had 10,000 for audio, and I think it was 13 maybe for, with the replacement of the cameras.
And that has nothing to do with charter.
That may be less than that, but I think you're going to be a very targeted amount of people that can actually bid on that, but we took your concerns that you had.
Yeah, I still think we need to be fair with those things, you know, dislike Matt. I mean, I like Matt a lot, but.
Okay. So we will get those back to you, and I'll be talking to Bob to see how he's going to go about getting some additional bits. We'll have to move along a little bit.
Sure.
And the charter's actually free. We're not paying for any of it, are we?
Huh?
The charter's free. We're not actually paying them for the service. It's just something free to.
When it's there and it's working, great. But like I said, it's just I wish I could tell you a percentage of how often it works.
That's what I was just going to ask, is how often has it, it seems like it's been down more than it's worked.
Such a headache.
I agree.
Anecdotally, you know.
Yeah, I agree. Which is the whole reason why we wanted to go look at doing the live streaming. We thought that was a better, more efficient way, because everybody's got access to that. They can pull it on their phone and watch it.
Sure.
So.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Family reading night is Friday at the middle school. Police department will be putting on a skit, 3 Billy Goats Gruff.
Which one are you?
Same one we've seen.
You Gruff?
I put the 3 brand new officers are going to be involved in this. So
Oh, good.
Training.
that's right. Public service.
Good job.
Be there.
Public vote on whether or not to hold a closed meeting to discuss personnel, legal, and
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we have no banana.
Yes.
I don't want to give you an aneurysm twice.